Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at the Four Prentices of London by Thomas Heywood. We have done the first two-thirds of the play. We're going to be doing the last scenes, going from scene 14 as we have it in our script, though arguably you could argue it's scene 13 if you wish, but it's, we're into the final stretch. We're in the middle of the Crusades, so some of this is moderately problematic. Some issues there, but the question will be, can we find a route through and make this function as a text that we could use today, or is it one that we have to say that problem is insuperable and must be acknowledged and just quietly walk away from the text, work away from the words, but we shall see. So reading today, the part of Robert is
Lois in London.
Reading Bella and Soldan is
Lynn in the Northwest United States.
Reading Lady Sophy and Guy is
Elizabeth in the southwest of England.
Reading Charles today is
Briony in Lincolnshire.
Reading Godfrey today is
Eve in the northwest of England.
Reading Eustace today is
Alexandra in The Sun.
Reading Clown, Tancred and Earl today is
Alan, based in Suffolk, never featured on page 3.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading Turnus and Moretes as well as stage directions and generally keeping this thing moving forward until it all falls apart in the final scene when there are slightly too many people on stage. Or just before the final scene, I think. But anyway, we'll see how he goes. So scene 14, or 13 if you discount the induction. Enter French lady, disguised, and Bella Franca flying, pursued by the clown.
Hey, you cowardly lady that run away from the camp and dare not stand to it. I'm glad I'm light on you. Choose your weapon. Choose your weapon. I am a soldier and a martial man, and I will offer you the right of arms. If you vanquish me, I'll be your captive. If you be cast down, I'll carry you back prisoner.
I wear a weapon that I dare not draw. Fie on this womanish fear. What shall I do?
Some of my father's spirit revives in me. Give me thy weapon, boy, and thou shalt see. I for us both will win sweet liberty.
I was never so overreached, but for shame that I am a man-at-arms, would run away and take me to my legs. Have at thee, sweet lady.
Bella and clown fight. Eustace comes in.
Base villain, darest thou offer violence unto a lady? Stay, maintain thy challenge.
You think you have a fool in hand? No, by my faith, not I. If you have any business to the camp, farewell. I'm running thither as fast as I can.
I probably froze there. Mount up my soul unto the height of joy, saving my foe, whose honoured shield I bear. None living did I more desire to meet.
Saving those Christian lords that seek my love, none living did I more desire to shun.
Well met, brave saint, in these unpeopled paths. Fear no rude force, for I am civil born, descended from a princely parentage, and though an exile from the Christian's camp, yet in my heart I wear the cross of Christ, even in as deep a crimson as the best. Love me, though I am landless, and remote from the fair clime where I first breathed this air, yet know I bear a kingdom in this sword, and ere I die look to behold this front impaled and encircled with a royal crown.
I never marked this gallant half so much. He hath my brother's eyes, my father's brow, and he's Eustace from top to toe.
I had a sister, lady, with that red that gives a crimson tincture to your cheek, with such a hand hid in a glove of snow that spake all music, like your heavenly tongue, and for her sake, fair saint, I honour you.
I had a brother, had not the rude seas deprived me of him. With that manly look, that grace and courage I behold in you. A prince whom had the rude seas never seen, even such another had young Eustace been.
Eustace. Even such an accent gave her tongue, so did my name sound in my sister's mouth. Oh, Bella Franca, wert thou not obscured within a cloud and mask of poverty, such fame ere this had thy rare virtues won, thus had thy beauty checked the all-seeing sun.
It is my brother Eustace.
View her well. Imagine her but thus attired, and she would Bella Franca and my sister be.
But strip my brother from his prentice coat, his cap, his common soldier's base disguise, even such a gallant as this seems to be, such would my brother, my sweet Eustace be.
Sister!
Brother!
Make me immortal then. By heaven, I vow I am richer than the Persian Sophy now.
All Asia flows not with more plenteous treasure than I to embrace my brother, my heart's pleasure. How did you escape the waves?
How have you passed the perilous land and crossed the seas so vast?
Where are my brothers, Eustace?
Oh, those words pierce to my heart like darts and pointed swords. Omit these passions, sister. They are dead. But to forget these griefs, what youth is this?
Page to the Prince of France.
'Tis he I hate as chief occasion of my banishment.
Yet, sweet brother, do not blame the youth. Full well he hath demeaned himself with me. He never, since we entered in this woods, left me in my distress. When we alone sit in the deserts, never by rude force did he me the least shame or violence.
A good cause why I lead so chaste a life. A jealous man may trust me with his wife.
Well, sirrah, for your truth and honesty I pardon thee, though I detest thy lord.
Then, let me change my habit, gentle sir, lest in this shape I chance to meet my master. Then, if you please, I'll clothe me like a lady, and wait upon your sister in your tent.
Nay, if it please thee, I am well content.
My plot is good. Well, howsoe'er it prove, 'twill either end my life or win my love.
Come, best part of myself, we now will go to wail our fortunes and discourse our woe. I will disguised lose my place in script. I will disguised unto the famous siege, and in these arms make known my valor's proof. You shall in secret in my tent abide. I to achieve fame will my spirits employ. After this grief, my heart divines much joy.
Exit, brother, sister. I do like the fact that the French lady is now going to disguise herself as herself. I think it's a clever disguise. No one will see through you when you disguise as yourself. I mean, it has to be. I'm not quite sure. So Eustace is sort of unrecognisable at the moment. Level 2 unrecognisable at the moment. So he wasn't recognised by his brothers when he was Eustace. He then went off and was doing fighty stuff and saved his other brothers, and they didn't recognise him again. And yet at this point, this is when his sister does recognise him. Now, it's a good thing that she doesn't recognise him as the person who was in the camp earlier, because he was hitting on her. And that conversation doesn't seem to be being had. I think I've unpacked that correctly. I could be wrong. There's so many levels of the not recognising each otherness that I might have got confused. Lois?
Yeah, I think she does sort of recognize him. I mean, she says first that saving those Christian lords that seek my love, none living did I more desire to shun. Presumably that means him. Though it's odd that she says saving those Christian lords, because he should be one of them. But she does also say, I never marked this gallant half so much. I mean, that may be a kind of excuse, you know, I just never noticed him before.
It's very, very odd. Alan?
No, the way I read the saving those Christian lords, basically she doesn't want anything to do with any of the boss category within the camp.
Mm.
You know, whether they're Tancred, Robert, or her brothers that she hasn't recognised.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noted in there is that presumably the clown just legs it after Eustace arrives, but there's no cue given for that.
Yeah, I am running thither as fast as I can is clearly the
Yeah.
exit line. Yeah, absolutely. I have noted. Alexandra.
Yeah, it seems to be that we're moving from a wooing context into a, hang on a second, you look familiar, sort of at the end, with Eustace's speech, well met, brave saint. So he's just said, oh, you're exactly who I wanted to find. She's going, I really didn't want you to find me. And then he starts talking about, you know, if we were somewhere else, I'd be the heir to a crown. But in the middle of it, he says, love me, though I am landless and remote from the fair clime where first I breathed this air. And, you know, I'm going to be love me because, even though I'm far away, I'm going to have a crown. And then she immediately, her next line is, you know, I've never looked at him really closely, but he looks so much like my brother. And then his is, you look like my sister. So it's almost like they get close enough that suddenly they're like, oh crap, actually, no, I recognize you. I think I recognize you. This is creepy.
Lois and Stephen.
Well, one really nice touch is that he sort of recognizes her from her voice when she says his name. You know, that's how my sister used to say my name, and that's rather nice, I think.
Stephen.
It kind of signals it looks forward, doesn't it? It's a bit proleptic because we're into families being put back together comedy territory as opposed to romantic comedy territory. You know, I mean, everyone can see that they're all going to recognize each other at some point, but you know, there's a big signal there. I think that we're heading towards the end of the play as this is kicking in.
And of course, what we haven't mentioned, of course, is there is a massive fight scene, or at least a reasonable fight scene between the clown and Bella. Bella actually takes up. So the woman disguised as a page goes, actually, I'm not very good at this. And Bella says, I'll give it here. And so that's a massive opportunity for fun fightiness that I quite like. And we can delay Eustace's actual arrival until she's actually vanquished the clown. I think it would just, because then we can make it a bit of a comedy thing of he comes in and says, I will save you. Oh, and the clown just goes, oh, for the love of God, how many people are going to try and kill me now? I'm off. And that might work quite nicely. Alexandra.
Yes, on the subject of the fighting, I just wanted to point out, I don't know, having not been here for the rest of this play, whether any of the women have been involved in fights. But generally speaking, I've not seen women fighting in their female form. And not being sort of a sexual assault, whereas this is an actual fight with have at thee lady, and she holds her own, so it's all very new and exciting, and yay.
Okay, let us continue on with the action, find out where else we're going. So scene 15 or 14. Enter Robert, Tancred, Godfrey and Charles with their shields and scutcheons, drum and soldiers. Godfrey's shield, having a maidenhead with a crown in it. Charles, his shield, the haberdasher's arms.
Behold the high walls of Jerusalem, which Titus and Vespasian once brake down. From off these turrets have the ancient Jews seen worlds of people mustering on these plains. O princes, which of all your eyes are dry to look upon this temple now destroyed? Yonder did stand the great Jehovah's house. In midst of all his people, there he dwelt. Vessels of gold did serve his sacrifice, and with him for the people spoke the priests. There was the ark, the showbread, Aaron's rod, sanctum sanctorum, and the cherubims. Now, in that holy place where God himself was personally present, pagans dwell. False gods are reared. Each temple idols bears. Oh, who can see this and abstain from tears?
This way, This sacred path our Saviour trod when he came riding to Jerusalem, whilst the religious people spread his way with flowers and garments and Hosanna cried. Yonder did stand the great church where he taught, confuting all the scribes and Pharisees. This place did witness all his miracles. Within this place did stand the judgment seat where Pontius Pilate with the elders sat, where they condemned him to be whipped and crowned, to be derided, mocked, and crucified. His hands bored through with nails, his side with spears. Who can see this place and keep his tears?
On yon side of the town he died for us, at whose departure all these walls did shake, and the destroyed temple's veil did rend. The groves are to be seen, from which ghosts rose. There stood the cross, there stands the sepulchre. The place still bears the name of dead men's bones, and still the tomb our Saviour's livery wears. What eye can see it and not melt in tears?
No soldier but shall look with reverence upon these fair and glorious monuments. To swear or speak profanely shall be death. I cast my heart as low as to this earth, and wish that I could march upon my knees in true submission and right holy zeal. Oh, since our wars are God's, abandon fears, but in contrition weep repentant tears.
Sound a parley. I see your hearts are fired, your souls with victory from heaven inspired.
They sound a parley. Enter upon the walls the Soldan, the Sophy, Turnus, Moretes, soldiers, and Flourish.
Why, swarm these Christians to our city walls. Look, foreigners, do not the lofty spires and these cloud-kissing turrets that you see strike deadly terror in your wounded souls? Go, Persian, flourish my vermilion flag, advance my standard high, the sight whereof will drive these stragglers in disordered ranks, and in a hurly-burly throng them hence.
See how they quake to view our martial looks, as when a sturdy cyclops rears aloft, a boisterous truncheon mongst a troop of dwarfs.
Soldan and Sophy, ye damned hellhounds both. So quakes the eagle to behold a gnat, the lion to behold a marmoset. I'll bid and brave you in your own belief, as when the heathen god, whom you call Jove, warred with the giant great Enceladus and flung him from Olympus' two-topped mount. The swains stood trembling to behold his fall, that with his weight did make the earth to groan. So, Soldan, look, when I have scaled these walls and won the place where now thou standst secure, to be hurled headlong from the proudest tower, in scorn of thee, thy false gods, and their power.
We will assail you like rebounding rocks, bandied against the battlements of heaven. We'll turn thy city into desert plains, and thy proud spires that seem to kiss the clouds shall with their gilt tops pave the miry streets, as all too base for us to march upon. Seest thou this shield? However, this device seems not to rank with emperors. Soldan, no, this shield shall give thy fatal overthrow.
Such peals of thunder did I never hear. I think that very words these walls will tear.
This shield, you see, includes two mysteries. A virgin crown, it is the mercer's arms, with all the picture of my love that's fled. Both these I'll grace, and add to them thy head.
Methinks I see pale death fly from their wounds, their speech so strong, how powerful their swords.
Since first I bore this shield, I quartered it with this red lion, whom I singly once slew in the forest. Thus much have I already added unto the haberdasher's arms. But ere I leave these fair Judean bounds, unto this lion I'll add all your crowns.
Send for some prisoners, martyr, torture them, even in the face of all the Christian host.
It shall be so. Moretes, bring them forth.
No drop of blood falls from a Christian heart, but thy heart's blood shall ransom. Enter some, bringing forth old Bullen, the Earl, from first scene, and other prisoners bound.
Bring them forth. Devise new tortures. Oh, for some rare artist that could invent a death more terrible than are the everlasting pangs of hell.
Oh, brethren, let me not move you to ruth. Happy is he that suffers for the truth. The joys to come exceed the present grief. Secure yourselves. The Christ is my relief.
Why shrinks the warm blood from my troubled heart?
Why starts my hair up at this heavy sight?
Say, Father, are you not the Bullen Earl?
Fair son, I was the happy Bullen Earl, but now, my son.
Call no man son but me. Father, my sword shall win your liberty.
Peace forged bastard, whatsoe'er thou be. My reverend father, call none son but me, for in this sword doth rest thy liberty.
Such mercy as my sword affords to pagans, he finds that calls me bastard. I am Charles. Father, you know me since I rescued you. I am your only son. The rest are dead.
I know thee, Charles.
But father, I am Godfrey, that by my valour have regained your right, have got your dukedom from the insulting French, am myself invested Bullen's duke.
I know thee, Godfrey.
Godfrey!
Brother Charles, the confident assurance of thy death made me to give the light to my...
The selfsame strong opinion blinded me, else for my brother I had challenged thee. Brother, you might have known me by the arms which I have borne in honour of my trade.
But the resolution of thy death made me to lose such thought.
Let us rejoice, and to your plausive fortunes give our voice.
Prince Robert, did the time afford us leave, we would discourse the sum of our escapes. But to our father's rescue.
Yield him, slaves.
Tush, we will keep in spite of all your braves.
Be that our quarrel.
With courage, courage strives. We fight for Christ, our Father, and our lives.
Here stands my ensign, and by it a crown, that you shall know the Persian honourable sets up his standard and crown. He that can fetch this ensign from the walls, which I myself will guard, and leave some token behind him that his sword hath conquered it, he shall enjoy them both.
And here stands mine.
Sets up his standard and crown.
And here stands mine. Set up his standard and crown, the Babylonian emperor's royal standard. By it I plant the rich Sicilian crown, guarded by me and my all-conquering troops. He that but leaves a note, he hath been here and scapes unslain, although he wins them not, that Christian will I honor.
Drums, alarm.
As loud and profound defiance our drums sound.
Christ, my father, conquest, and 2 crowns.
And they exit. There's the Larums. The Christians are repulsed. And there we'll pause. Alexandra, you were right. It's, I'm his son. I'm his son.
No, I'm so.
Yeah, and in the middle of a scene which really doesn't feel like it belongs in this place, because it feels awfully, history plays sort of Tamburlaine. All of a sudden, it's just people come on and make these really depressing speeches. I think people were in the chat talking about, this is not a good TripAdvisor review for this particular location. So yeah, it's weird. It's a weird tonal shift. Lynn.
Yeah, it's weird, but maybe we don't have a tonal shift here. I mean, all those 3 speeches at the top of the scene describing the crucifixion. No. Yeah. I mean, we've already talked about we need to make this a different war. Yeah. There really is something sort of sadomasochistic about Christianity, isn't there? But that recognition scene, I wonder if you could do something super funny with the Soldan and the Sophy up on the walls going, what is going on here? What? Like their reactions, I think could be really hilarious. But it's very weird to have a recognition scene when like you've got a very important question of the plot hanging fire, like waiting to be resolved. Very weird.
Yeah, you do really want the Soldan to just go, excuse me, we have a war here. You stop all this. That's just too silly. Stephen.
With my historical head on, I wonder if this is in the ridiculousness of it that Lynn's pointed out is in some part a kind of critique of chivalry. In it's so quarrelsome. And by the reign of Elizabeth, all of this stuff has kind of been damped down. It's basically in the gift of the monarch, and this precedes that as a historical shift. So I wonder if the tonal stuff that we're detecting is that they've taken a great deal of care, haven't they, with the chivalric bits and bobs, that we should recognise it as a true picture. All this heraldic stuff. It's not just blokes with swords having at each other, but at the same time, this ridiculousness, can be read as a sort of celebration and a critique at the same time.
Well, it's the fact you've sort of got this connection because, they're not just knights turning up with, here is my heraldic shield to do with my greater, because they're all got their livery company shields. So there's something slightly absurd about that is really quite nice because it's not like they're all going, we are the heirs of the Earl of Bullen. You're going, no, I am a haberdasher. Fear my sword. Alexandra.
And then when they do recognize each other, finally they go, well, you should have known me by my symbol, which is, the same as everybody else who works there. What? Yes, I also wanted to point out in support of Stephen's theory of, again, without knowing how this has been treated earlier in the play, but in support of Stephen's theory of maybe the ridiculousness is intentionally ridiculous, both the Sultan and the Sophy and speak themselves and are addressed with references to Greek religion, mythology, as opposed to anything that might actually have relation to potentially the people that were on the other side of the crusade. So yes, I'm not sure what to make of that, whether that's intentional or accidental, but certainly in a modern production, you could make again a point of why are they not involved in this war, and also why do they think we pray to like Jove, and what is wrong with these people? Should we kill them?
Okay, let's find Lynn, and then we'll move on.
I don't know when this was written in relation to certain censorship laws, or it might have been changed in the printing, but Jove was sometimes just a substitute for God because you couldn't say God on stage.
Yeah, but God didn't fight Enceladus and get thrown out of and throw him out of Olympus. So I mean, those are definitely, yeah.
Okay, let's move on. We'll do a couple of scenes back to back because this sort of action flows into it. Because we've just had the alarum, fightiness. Christians are repulsed. Enter to several doors. Guy and Eustace, who we haven't seen for a bit, doing their amazing fighting action, I'm sure. Guy and Eustace climb up the walls, beat the pagans, take away the crown single-handedly. Guy and Eustace once again win. Beat the pagans, take away the crowns on their heads, and in the stead hang up the contrary shields and bring away the ensigns, flourishing them several ways. Enter the Soldan, the Sophy, Moretes, Turnus, with lords and soldiers. So everyone remember to be all and be lords, please. Thank you.
Now the first ball is won. The ensigns seized. The crown surprised, and the Christians have the day. But shall we leave the town?
Leave
the town.
Tis best to take us to the field.
I think 'tis best that we make good the breach, and have no thought of marching towards the field. We leave a place of much security.
Why then make good the breach?
It shall be so. Gather our forces to make good the breach.
Tush, why should we be pent up in a town? Let's open the gates and boldly issue out, leaving some few pikes to make good the breach. What say you, lords?
Let us issue out.
Open the gates and let us issue out.
Let us issue out.
And so expose us to the general spoil? Keep the gates shut. Defend them manfully. These Christians fight like devils. Keep fast the gates. And once again, let us make good the wall.
Make good the wall! Make good the wall!
And with such decisive action there, we go into scene 17. Enter at one door Robert and Charles. They meet Eustace with his trophy. Enter at another door Godfrey, Tancred. They meet Guy with his trophy.
Triumphant honour hovers o'er our arms. What gallant spirit bravely hath borne hence the emperor's standard, slaughtered his proud guard, and in the stead thereof hung up his shield.
Witness this royal crown upon my head. I seized the ensign, I hung up that shield.
What puissant arm snatched hence the Sophie's standard?
This crown upon my head says it was I.
Forgetful Charles, brave Robert, see the knight whose valour freed us from the Soldan's hands.
Renowned Christian, ever honoured be, it was thy sword procured us liberty.
By heaven, not I. I never came in place where Robert or that gallant were distressed, but there are others, thankless, whom I freed, and now too proud forget that honoured deed.
'Twas he released us. Honoured stranger, thanks. But they are idle offerings from true hearts. Prince Tancred and myself owe thee our lives.
You mock me, princes. Never did my sword drink drop of pagan's blood to set you free. But Robert and that prince unthankful be.
Whose shield is that?
Mine.
Then to you we owe thanks for our lives, the pagan's overthrow.
The shield I challenge, but the act deny. I never gave you life or liberty.
Whose shield is that?
Mine.
Then by thee we live. Thou did our desperate lives and freedom give.
What mean you, princes, to deride a stranger? These eyes did never see you two in danger.
Who owns that shield?
I. And who owns that?
I.
Thou knowest me then.
Thanks, fortune, that I do.
Have at thee, slave.
Brave foe, have at thee too.
Guy and Eustace fight, just to make a change, and are parted by the princes Robert and Tancred.
But ere your quarrel be, contend no more. He draws his sword against me that fights again, for I am foe to all dissension.
So are we all. Then end these wars in words. The pagans have employment for your swords.
For one blow more, take here my crown amongst you. Now that my spleen is up, it will not down. I'll give you all I have for one bout more.
Lords, take mine too. By heaven, I'll pawn my life against the Soldan's head to bring it you. So you will let us try this mastery.
Kingdoms nor crowns shall hire it at our hands. It shall not be. We say it shall not be. Where are you, lords? We charge you by his honor, whom in your outward habit you profess, to tell us both what and from whence you are.
You charge us deeply. I, a banished man, whom you for mutiny expulsed the camp, yet was I leader of 10,000 French, but thought by you unworthy of these wars. Since my exile, Prince Robert, view me well, I freed you two from base captivity. 'Twas I that brought you weapons in the woods, and then you termed me some celestial power. But being now in safety, you forget your dangers past and cancel that great debt.
Nay, I am sure you long to know me too. I am your outlaw brother, one of your leaders, banished with him, that from the Persians' rage freed Tancred and that valiant man-at-arms. However, now they can forget my prowess. What need you more? I am he that won this crown, and from these high walls plucked that ensign down.
You have redeemed all your offenses past, deserving best in this society. But when you freed me, you did bear that shield.
I did, but since exchanged it with my foe.
And you did bear that shield.
True, I did so. Had I been awake, thou knowest my mind, I had writ thy ruin in blood.
Thy words are mine.
Leave, brother Godfrey, and the Bull and Duke.
How?
What?
Do you not know these faces?
Brother Charles?
Brother!
Charles!
I question with them, but it may not be. They might escape the seas as well as we. I had a brother, sir, resembled you.
I had a brother too, resembled you.
The Bull and Duke, if ever you have heard of such a man, had once a son like you.
I, and another son as much like you.
My brother's name was Eustace.
Godfrey, mine.
That Duke called his son Charles.
Mine called his Guy.
My brother Eustace.
Godfrey!
Guy.
And Charles.
Brothers!
This accident breeds wonders in my thoughts.
Oh, let me curse my head that envied thee.
Nay, curse my heart that emulated thee.
My brother outlaw and my own true brother.
For ever thus let us embrace each other.
When I was cast upon the Bull and Strand, I thought none had escaped the seas but I.
When I was thrown upon the French king's coast, I thought none had escaped the seas but I.
I thought the seas had favoured none but me when I attained the shores of Italy.
Ireland took me, and there I first touched ground, presuming that my brothers were all drowned.
Were ye the four young London prentices that in the ships were racked on Godwin's sands, are said to perish then of no repute? Now come the least of you to lead a host, and to be found the sons to a great duke.
Witness my shield, the trade I have professed.
Witness my shield, I am one amongst the rest.
Witness thou mine.
And witness thou for me.
We witness all your martial chivalry.
And now, my foe turned brother, end our hate, and praise that power divine who guides our state.
Divide we hands and hearts, what hatred rests. Pour out in thunder on the pagans' crests.
Our joys are not at full. They shall not yet know where my sister and their love remains until these wars have ended. Oh, had our God now laid our fortunes open, but a brother been brought in triumph to a sister's bed, the clouds of despair had masked our sun of joy. Yet I will keep her secret, and the rather to crown our haps when we have freed our father.
Enter Turnus. Christians, once more defiance in my tongue sounds dismal terror in your fearful ears. The princes whom I serve grieve they have merged such a huge army in a wall of stone, and they are thus resolved to leave all place of scorned advantages, and in a pitched field end this glorious war. Say, when will ye meet them?
Though he trust his strength, yet will we meet his forces face to face, when the dry earth shall quaff your bloods apace.
And tell the Soldan from a Christian prince that won from him these colours and this crown. In that pitched field my head this crown shall bear, and scarf like these athwart my breast I'll wear.
This, for the Persians' sake, I'll wear in sight, and under his own ensign this they fight.
Go, tell the Soldan that he wears my crown. Fortune hath given it me. It is mine own.
If thou hast more to say concerning war, omit thy braves and trifling circumstance. We'll meet you sooner than you can desire. Be gone. Be gone. Our hearts are all on fire.
Brave lords, our conquests will be honourable, because we have to deal with honoured foes. Our pikes stand to receive you like a wood. We'll slake our white steeds in your Christian blood.
To meet them and appoint our powers, this day the city and themselves are ours.
Thou, under whom we fight, this day defend us, for unto thy protection we commend us.
And exit, and the brothers do what they do best when they've reconciled, is go and fight. And yeah, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I say Guy and Eustace have basically single-handedly won this war for them. I mean, and now there's probably a budgetary reason for that, in the sense that this play seems designed for not many actors, so it looks like you can just about muster enough people to fight the Christian powers here, so long as the Christian powers are Guy and Eustace, and then everybody else can fight them. It sort of seems to be how that all functions. But we get a reconciliation scene after, of course, Guy and Eustace have fought each other for a bit as well. So fighty action, and then this reconciliation scene, take two. We get to all the reconciliation scenes and some vague reference to sisterness issues. So, doesn't completely run away from that, but largely runs away from it because nobody has a group discussion. I don't know if my screen is flickering, but my light bulb in my room is constantly flickering at the moment, so I'm quite distracted. I don't think it's power. I think the light bulb's just about to die, so if I plunge into darkness, that'll be why. Lynn.
So I didn't follow Eustace's rationale for not telling them all that Bella was around and they'd all been crushing on her and they need to stop that. Well, Alexandra, you read it. Did you follow his logic?
Basically, thank goodness that terrible thing didn't happen, which is one of us would have ended up with her. I'm just going to keep this secret as a sort of icing on the cake when we've all reunited with our father. That's all he says. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, let's not go into it. We've got a war to fight. Let's worry about the ick factor later, because it just might put people off their stroke later. Briony, are you waving?
Yeah, I don't know, something about that last the where the brothers reunited moment. I don't know, it's giving me like Mexican wrestler vibes. I feel like maybe you could update it in that way. I don't know, there's just something silly about it, and perhaps that's why they're not recognizing each other, because they've all got these wrestler masks on, but they've all obviously got their clear job insignia on their wrestling gear. I don't know, it just pinged into my head.
Yeah, they're all just constantly wearing their helmets, and they never take their helmets off, because that's what you do when you're soldiers who wear them all the time. So yeah, I like that. Alexandra.
Yes, wearing of helmets. Hollywood movies, take note. It would be really hard to be heard through if we were. I think it's a good idea in terms of it. It would be a realistic solution. But then, people would be speaking through a great big chunk of metal. So, a staging solution, I don't know. But what I wanted to point out, the reason I was going on to Hollywood movies is actually there is something very Hollywood movie about let us park the international conflict for these four dudes to or two of them, or whatever it was earlier, to have a chat about their relationship. And also, I think there's something very Hollywood about, the entire First Crusade was started and won 30 years too early by these two random dudes. It's very Mission Impossible, and I think you could really lean into that.
Yeah, if this was a film, the whole reconciliation scene would be happening when they're running away and a bomb is about to go off. And yet the audience is sitting there going, no, you wouldn't have this conversation because the bomb's about to come. You just run. You'd have this conversation later. And then that would be how this scene would work. Yeah. Okay. Alan.
Yeah, I must admit, I was wondering where the hell Tancred had got to until he gets that one line at the end of the scene. He's supposedly co-leader of the whole venture, and he doesn't get a word in sideways.
Well, he's not a family member, is he?
Norse Robert.
Yet.
Norse Robert.
Still time. He'll be an in-law. It's okay. Don't worry. I don't think it's going that way. Anyway. Scene 18. Enter at one door with drum and colours. The Soldan, the Sophy, Moretes, Turnus, and soldiers.
Great monarchs, kings, and princes of the East, you come to encounter with a valiant foe, such as have swum huge rivers, climbed the Alps, that can endure sharp hunger, such as shrink not to have their blood sod with the dog day's heat, nor to be curdled with the cold of Saturn's rod. What honor were it for an host of giants to combat with a pygmy nation? No, lords, the foe we must encounter with is full of spirit and majestic spleen, strong, hardy, and their hearts invincible. Destroy these, and you win yourselves a name, and all the nations of the earth shall fear you.
The more renowned the foe is, the more famous shall be our conquest, the more great therefore. Come, lords, divide we our battalions.
Be yours the wayward.
I will give the charge.
Turnus, have you the rearward. I the battle, Moretes, thou this day shall lead the horse. Take thou the coronet, Turnus, the archers. Be thine the guidon, and the men, I the men-at-arms. Be mine the ensign.
Then mount our cannons. Let our flanking pieces rail on the Christian army with wide mouths. For I this day will lead the forlorn hope. The camisado shall be given by me.
Already they have placed their battery. Their ordnance shall stand fit to beat the flanks.
My cannoneers need no instruction. Come, let us line our pikes with musketeers, and so attend the Christians' fatal charge.
And we don't quite know what happens in the precise nature of the melee here. Enter marching Robert, Tancred, Godfrey, Guy, Charles, Eustace, drums and soldiers.
Princes, this day we are espoused to death. A better place to die in than this vale in which our Saviour's sepulchre remains. What man in all our army could desire? Speak, how have you disposed our officers?
Your Grace is Captain General of the Army.
And Godfrey, you High Marshal and Master of the Camp. And as assistants, you have under you the Sergeant Major, Quartermaster, Provost, and Captain of the Spions.
My brother Guy, Chief General of the Horse. To serve him is Lieutenant Colonel, Captains, and Scoutmasters.
My brother Charles, General of the Artillery. Under him, his Lieutenant Commissaries of Munitions, Gentlemen of the Artillery, Colonel Pioneers, Trench Masters, and Carriage Masters.
My brother Eustace, Treasurer of the Camp, and under him, the Auditors, Muster Masters, and Commissaries.
Prince Tancred is our Royal Secretary, without whom nothing is concluded on. Thus are the special officers disposed.
Princes, what order take you for the assault?
One half maintain the battery, beat the walls, whilst the other keeps them play in the open fields.
We shall not need to block the breach with forts. Victuals and forage are at pleasure hours. Stoccados, palisados stop their waters. Bullocks and curtains all are battered down, and we are safe entrenched by pioneers. Our casemates, cavaliers and counterscarfs are well surveyed by all our engineers. Fortifications, ramparts, parapets, that we at pleasure may assault the way, which leads unto the gate Antiocha.
Whilst you intend the walls, shall my barred horse give a brave onset, shivering all their pikes, armed with their greaves and maces and broadswords, proof cuirasses and open burgonets?
Let us look our battle be well manned with shot, bills, halberds, and proof targetiers.
No man but knows his charge. Brothers and friends, see where they stand for us. This night shall hide all their bright glory, which now swells with pride.
Christians,
Pagans,
behold our camp.
Soldan, survey ours too.
From Ganges to the Bay of Calicut, from Turkey to the threefold Araby, from Saxon eastward unto Nubia's bounds, from Libya and the land of Mauritans, from the Red Sea to the wilderness, we have unpeopled kingdoms for these wars to be revenged on you base Christians.
From England, the best brood of martial spirits, whose walls the ocean washeth white as snow, for which you strangers call it Albion. From France, a nation both renowned and feared. From Scotland, Wales, even to the Irish coast, beyond the pillars great Alcides reared. At Gades in Spain, unto the Pyrene hills, have we assembled men of dauntless spirits to scourge you hence, ye damned infidels.
Within our troops are sturdy bands of Moors, of Babylonians, Persians, Bactrians, of Grecians, Russians, of Tartarians, Turks, even from the floods that grow from paradise unto this place where the brook Kedron runs. Within our troops are English, French, Scotch, Dutch, Italians of Prince Tancred's regiment, even from the seas that wall in Albion, as far as any river or brook runs that Christian drinks on, have we people here.
To make our streets red with your Christian blood.
To drown you slaves in a vermilion flood.
To burn your bodies o'er the prophet's grave.
to lead your emperor captive like a slave.
To make your guide trot by my chariot wheel.
To lash your armour with these rods of steel.
Then to extirp you all, ye Persian powers, assist our courage, make the conquest ours.
God, match thy might with theirs, protect us too, to let this people know what thou canst do.
A charge, rail drums and cannons roar. Christians, at home your friends abroad deplore.
Christians at home, abroad our conquest fame. Thou, God of hosts, this day make known thy name.
And there's Nalarum, join battle, Christians are beaten off. The Soldan victoriously leads off his soldiers, marching. There, we're going to pause there. There seems to be an extended list joke here. I'm sure that's what's going on here, that this whole thing just needs to get sillier and sillier as they keep listing off the things that they've got and the places they come from, and it's just this extended come and have a go. Yeah, because service captains and scoutmasters are Kayla and brownies. You know, it's it just feels like it doesn't feel fully developed and might work better in performance, but it just seems this constant list of, yeah, we've got things and things, we've got muskets. I'm sort of thinking, what, in the 11th century? Let's not worry about history. Alan, Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a nice one in there, which is Eustace, who is one of the two who's basically defeated the pagan army single-handed on a number of occasions, is put in charge of the auditors. You know, we're not going to give him a frontline role. He's going to be the one. And in modern day terms, the auditors are described as those who turn up after the fighting's finished to bayonet the wounded and count the dead, and then make off with the loot.
Lois.
Well, I wondered about that whole subdivisions and subdivisions of the army. What on earth they're doing this here for? I mean, it's as if Heywood must have read some book about how you divide your army up, you know, what all the different degrees are, and he's determined to show he knows it. Otherwise, it just seemed goofy. We're about to go into battle. Let's see, how did we organize the army? Would you mind just telling me? I mean, really?
Yeah.
I'd say it feels like that's the deliberate gag here, is that you just have all these constant lists of things. Lynn, then Alexandra.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Lois about that. All that technical knowledge is just kind of the playwright showing off that he has it. You know, and the list thing, I don't know if we could make it funny, but it's a common pattern in poetry too. You know, copia lists of things. It's actually Ciceronian.
Well, it's Homeric. I mean, the back catalog of the ships is the famous example.
Yeah.
Alexandra.
I might be alone in the corner of I liked it.
I did not like it, as I said, just because I think it's quite silly.
Yeah, I think again, thinking of it from the which I've decided it's a Hollywood blockbuster with very tenuous links to reality, and you know our heroes do all the work. From that perspective, this is the, you know, simultaneously in the different tents, we're cutting between the two kind of groups of leaders, each setting up on the beautifully arranged map that is entirely inaccurate to what they would have had at the time. You know, these troops are going to go there, and then you'll be in charge of these troops going there, and all of this, in order to save on the CGI budget of actually showing us that happening as part of the battle. I did like it for the reason that I think if you have some vague understanding of what the things mean, then okay, cool, you can feel rewarded in that. But even if you don't, you're getting a distinction between what the different armies have, and that they have different you know, their organization is different, and also their kinds of troops and ammunition and you know strategies and all of that is very different. And I think it's distinctive enough in how they set it up. You know, you're going to be in charge of the archers. This is your standard. I'm going to be with the chariots. This is my standard. It sort of sets us up as an audience to be like, oh, okay, so when the guy who's with the bad guys and has the yellow flag turns up, I know who that is. And then when I see the red flag, that's the other guy, leader of the bad guys, etc. Again, for the big CGI scene.
Stephen.
I wonder also if it's giving us something in plot terms to signify that they're now all working in, you know, for the same cause, rather than kind of kicking lumps out of one another. That they're, you know, they're part of a sort of a well-organized military force.
That is true, because previously every time they've met for a parley, they have a fight amongst themselves and go, don't fight in front of the enemy. You're letting the side down. Oh, you're banished. Whereas absolutely, they're organised. So there's a journey, sort of. Okay, let's run a few scenes, short scenes together, because we've got lots of little scenes happening here. So the Soldan has victoriously led off his soldiers. Enter Charles and Godfrey with pistols.
Oh God, that multitude should more than manhood, that we should thus be borne down with a press, be thronged and shouldered from the place we keep.
For every man we lead, the foe has 10. Their weapons' tops appear above their heads in as thick number as the spikes of grain upon a well-tilled land. They have more lives than all our tired arms could send to death. They should yield their bare breasts to our swords.
What should we do? We are encompassed round, girded with thousands in a ring, and like a man left on a dangerous rock, the weight that waits the climbing tide rise to destroy him. What way soe'er he looks, sees naught but death. So we, the bloody tide grows up apace, whose waves will swallow us all and all our race. Where's Guy and Eustace?
Gone to scale a tower in which our father lies. I did see them cut down a wood of men upon the sudden. Their swords cut lances as a scythe cuts grass. Their valour seems to me miraculous. Thou, saviour of the world, whose cross we bear, infuse our hearts with courage, theirs with fear.
Exeunt Charles and Godfrey. Enter the Soldan, the Sophy and soldiers. Alarum! I put my drum down. Anyway, enter Guy and Eustace with their father, the Earl. When Eustace can find their unmuting button.
A scion! A scion!
At Jerusalem!
Ah, father, and in him a crown of joy!
A scion at Jerusalem, a father!
Through their decurions, centurions, and legions, captains of thousands and 10,000 guards, we have ventured even upon the cannon's mouth, and scaled the bullocks where their ordnance played. The strength of armies triumphs in those arms. We have surprised the fortress and the hold. My shield I have had cut piecemeal from my arm. But now you would have taken me for an archer, so many arrows were stuck here and here. The pagans thought to make a quiver of me.
Alarum, enter pagans.
See, brother, how the foe fresh forces gather. A scion, a Jerusalem, a father!
Every one by turns takes up their father and carries him. Enter the two brothers, Godfrey and Charles. They aid and second them, and with a shout they carry him away. Alarum! Enter the Soldan and the Sophy.
An engineer! Call forth an engineer!
Why? What to do, my lord?
I'll make these turrets dance among the clouds before the Christians shall inhabit them.
Yet there is hope of conquest. Fight, brave Soldan.
These Christians rage like spirits conjured up. Their thundering ordnance spit huge clouds of fire. They run against the walls like iron rams and bear them down afore them with their breasts.
Fortune, thou art too envious of our glory. Behold the greatest empress of the earth, the Babylonian Soldan and great Sophy. Unveil thine eyes and look upon our falls.
Fortune and fate and death and the devil and all oppose themselves against us.
Enter Moretes and Turnus.
Now, what news?
Death!
What news bringest thou?
Confusion!
That death was once my slave, but now my lord.
Confusion was once page unto my sword. Is the day lost?
Lost!
Must we despair?
Despair!
We will not. We will die resolvedly. The palace we will make a slaughterhouse. The streets a shambles. Kennels shall run blood down from the mountains, Sion, with such hideous noise as when great showers of water falls from hills.
Through which way did they make eruption first?
Oh, through the gate called Antiochia, the self-same breach that Roman Titus made when he destroyed this city, they burst ope.
There is some virtue in the cross they wear. It makes them strong as lions, swift as roes. Their resolution makes them conquerors. They have ta'en our royal standard from the walls, in place whereof they have advanced their cross.
I will not survive so foul a shame. Once more unite our powers, I mean ourselves, for all powers else have failed us. Bravely fight, that our declining sun may make their night.
Enter the four brothers.
Christians, base Christians, hear us when we call. Eternal darkness shall confound you all.
Alarum! The four brethren, each of them kill a pagan king, take off their crowns, and exeunt. To one way and to another way, retreat. So, yeah, four dead bodies there. There we are. Four dead people there. You know, if we were enjoying the merry mood earlier, it's nothing like wholesale slaughter of four characters. I mean, I was really quite enjoying the two messengers. I was thinking that there's certainly some of their lines are quite easy to learn. Lost and despair, quite straightforward. You just echo the previous line. Yeah, because it's all very comically played. A lot of that. It's in terms of the losing side there, which is quite problematic. And just go, oh, yes, the cross, those Christians. Oh, look at that onward Christianness, winningness. Thing, yeah. Charles and Godfrey armed with pistols, though, so they've got some, future technology from the time machine that they've brought with them.
Right? No wonder the Christians are winning. They're about 400 years ahead of time.
Yeah, this isn't a history narrative. This is a science fiction time travel story. That's what it is. There we are. All makes sense now.
Assassin's Creed First Crusade. Where are Eustace and the other one? Scaling the tower.
Yeah, and as ever, it's it's Guy and Eustace who win single-handedly the war. They're the ones who do it. Yeah. So, yeah, it's sort of instantly. It's bits of it are really fun, and then it's bits of it just going, oh, that's a bit much. Ooh, eek. Yeah. Stephen, are you thinking of speaking?
It just reminded me a bit of I can't remember now. Tamburlaine has 4 kings. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if it's kind of taking a bit of a cue from that, as well as from and the invasion of the city. That kind of links very nicely with Lois's point about Homeric elements. I think that there's the kind of description of what happens when a city falls. Some of that is plugged into there. So I wonder if it's something, some kind of theatrical memory there of what Tamburlaine does to those he defeats. So except this time it's the Christians, and doing it against a kind of sort of Star Trek style coalition of the bad, rather than any one specific kind of person. I think that's interesting. The kind of the way in which all these different elements are arranged, and it's much less kind of anti-Islamic than it might be. I suppose that's the best you can say about it.
And of course, we do have this moment. I mean, there's lots of dumb show moments where you don't quite fully take in, but the whole bit about each of them takes up their father and carries him, as they rescue the father. That's the important point, because to a degree they're slightly hamstrung until they've actually rescued their father, because of course he's the ultimate hostage as far as the 4 brothers are concerned. Elizabeth, sorry, I missed you earlier.
Wasn't there a moment where someone was saying, like, there are thousands and thousands of them and they've encircled us? And I thought that was the Persians and the Babylonians have encircled the Christians.
Yeah,
but I must have got that the wrong way round, because suddenly the Christians have won.
No, you've got to remember that you're absolutely right. No, they were encircling the Christians, but the Christians have got Eustace and Guy who can beat everyone. Yes. I mean, it's basically it's the death card in Top Trump's fantasy. Just basically automatically size through everyone. So yeah, no stopping them. Lynn, then Alan.
Yeah, I was wondering why Turnus. Little Iliad echo there. Because I don't remember him in our earlier scenes set in the Soldan's court. Well, we need Turnus because we need 4 kings because we got 4 brothers.
He's been there from the top.
Yeah. Yeah, Turnus and Moretes were the 2 ambassadors sent.
Okay.
Yeah. They weren't really
Turnus
clearly kings.
For war, and Moretes was all for peace.
Yeah, and yeah, we've got Tamburlaine echoes all over the place. When the Soldan says something about their words are like thunder, they could almost defeat us with their words. That's totally Tamburlaine. You never really see Tamburlaine fight. You just hear him talk.
Yeah. Oh, yes. They really don't do fight scenes. The fight scenes are all off stage, happening somewhere else, or they're sitting there having tea while it's going on. Yeah,
and one of the kings who's ineffectual. He also talks about, I'm not really very eloquent. So that eloquence and martial power are co-vary in Tamburlaine. And, we joke, we kid about, they're from the future and it's a Star Wars setting. I think a kind of science fiction-y fantasy, this doesn't really correlate to anything in known history, resetting for this play might be something you should consider. Like the whole Islamophobia. It could be worse. That's not exactly high praise. So yeah, if you want to do it, let's make a setting that's like we just made it up.
Mm-hmm. I already have some thoughts on that, but yeah, more of that sort of thinking, because I definitely think that there is a version of this play that is doable, but not quite this version. Alan?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is basically reminds me very much of what used to be Saturday morning pictures when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a Western or whether it's a war film or whatever, the heroic band. And I suppose actually Star Wars is probably the closest, because that was effectively a remake of all of the C-grade Saturday morning movies. Mm. In fact, I think Spielberg at one point was someone said, "Oh, you left 4 cliches out." He said, "Oh, for God's sake, write them down. I'll include them in the next edition."
Mm. Oh, Lucas.
Mm.
Well, and both on them.
Mm. I mean, Eustace and Guy are basically cloned Errol Flynns, aren't they? It's that's that logic. Stephen.
So what do we make of that kind of comedy scene where they're wondering what to do about the siege and whether to repair the walls and whether they should go out or whether they should stay where they are?
Yeah, we didn't.
I think we have maybe 4. Is it? It's kind of, let's do this. Yes, let's all do this. No, hang on, should we do that? Yes, let's all do that. What's going on there tonally, do people think? I have no idea myself.
I do think that the Soldan, the camp are constantly being played for laughs in the two extremes that go on in their forces, because at the beginning of the play they were one side is peace, one side is war, and they're constantly being sent up all the time. And you're right, we didn't talk about that scene, the short scene, because I ran it into the next. Of all the people behind just going, yeah, we're all individuals, and the way that went back and forth, which is a very funny scene, if it wasn't just sort of the nature of the way the play frames that side of the forces, as it were, because it's all a bit uncomfortable by making them so stupid. It's a bit, makes it a bit awkward. Stephen.
Having said that, though, Lynn's point about these kind of crazy Christians are being watched from the battlements as they kind of lose their shit and start hitting one another again. It kind of you could imagine a production at any rate which would have an element of both sides about it, because these kind of they're watching it and they're going, oh, who are these idiots?
Alexandra.
I do think, though, that it would be interesting if we continue with the theme of that you mentioned, of there being an almost even split between we want war and we want peace in the local camp, let's call them, in the camp that currently holds Jerusalem. I think it would be really interesting if what we have as speech prefixes being all are in fact about half of the multitude, so that what we're getting is very strong opinions, but in completely opposite directions. So they're sort of internally conflicting, whereas the Christian camp, once they've all figured out that they're related, no longer has internal conflicts. And therefore, that's why that works for them, and the other guys, even though there's more of them, fail.
Anyway, we've got one more scene to do before we close the session. So let us find out where it all goes. Enter Robert, Tancred, Godfrey, Guy, Charles, Eustace, the old Duke, the Earl, drum, colours, and soldiers.
Now smooth again the wrinkles of your brows and wash the blood from off your hands in milk. With penitential praises, laud our God, ascribe all glory to the heavenly powers, since Zion and Jerusalem are ours.
We do abhor a heart puffed up with pride that attributes these conquests to our strength. 'Twas God that strengthened us and weakened them, and gave us Zion and Jerusalem.
Thou that dost muster angels in the sky, that in thyself hast power of victory, make thy name shine bright as the noontide sun, since Zion and Jerusalem are one.
My former want hath now sufficient store. For having seen this, I desire no more. How fair and smooth my stream of pleasure runs, to look at once on Zion and my sons.
Showers of abundance rain into our lips, to make repentance grow within our hearts. What greater earthly bliss could heaven pour down than Sion, our dear father, and this town?
Then to confirm these conquests God hath given us, sealed with the blood of kings and emperors, let us elect a king that may maintain our honours with the deaths of monarchs slain.
Call forth the Patriarch of Jerusalem. His right hand must bequeath that dignity.
As I speak it, lagging in the train of the distressed Soldan, he was slain.
Praised be our God, we have revenged his death. Great potentates consort him to his grave.
What man for gravity and sanctity may we think worthy of this honoured place?
Whose years, devotion, and most sacred life better can fit that holy place than his whose worthy sons have brought to end these wars? Princes, join hands, invest him all at once.
My fervent zeal bids I should not deny. It brings my soul to heaven before I die.
But, princes, whom will ye elect the king to guard this city from succeeding peril?
Robert of Normandy.
Oh, choose Prince Tancred rather.
Too weak is my desert, and I refuse it.
Then put it to most voices.
Robert of
Normandy.
Normandy.
Princes, we much commend you for your loves, but letters from England tell me William's dead, and by succession left the crown to me. I say Prince Godfrey hath deserved it best.
So Tancred says.
And
so
say
all
all
the
the rest.
rest.
Press me down with too much honours, load a soul that cannot bear them up. Dissuade me not. No counsel I will hear. Behold, a crown which Godfrey means to wear. Crown of thorns. This made the blood run from our Saviour's brow. No crown but this in Godfrey's heart allow. Prayers are my pride. Devotion draws my sword. No pomp but this can Bullen's soul afford. My vows irrevocable. State, I refuse. No other crown but this will Godfrey choose.
If he refuse the place, elect Prince Guy. Most voices, shall he have the sceptre?
Yay!
Then crown him straight, and henceforth let his name be through the world called Guy of Lessingham. All these desire it, I consent with them. Long live Prince Guy, King of Jerusalem.
The crown is burst and parted from my head. I fear the heavens are angry with your choice.
Son Guy, they are not. By divine instinct, the heavens have lent me a prophetic spirit. This shows thy troublous reign. Mutinies from far shall fright thy towns and provinces with war.
If it be nothing else, crown me again. We have a heart our kingdom to maintain. What honours do my brothers' heads await?
Prince Eustace, you shall wear this crown of state. Be King of Sicily and command that isle. Lord Charles, the crown of Cyprus longs to you, that in the fight the King of Cyprus slew. One general voice at once proclaim them kings.
In memory of this solemnity, here will I leave this scutcheon borne by me, that in what coast soe'er my bones be laid, this shield may be an honour to my trade.
Mine shall hang there, a trophy of my fame. My trade is famous by King Eustace's name.
In memory a king hath borne this shield. I add these chalices to this argent field.
Honour of my first profession, that shield in all these wars by Godfrey borne, I crown this maid's head with a wreath of thorn.
Oh, were my daughter here, this joy to see, how light her soul, how glad would my heart be.
I'll read Tancred from now on. Would I had now my love.
Or I that dame that adds to beauty's sun a brighter flame.
Were the fair virgin here, I would renown her glorious beauty with the English crown.
Princes, I'll fit you all. Lady, come forth.
Enter Bellafranca.
The lovely princes.
Fair mistress.
Lady.
Madame.
Honoured saint.
Nay, pardon me, love comes not by constraint. But, princes, will you grant me patience? Before I part, I mean to please you all. First, holy patriarch, tell me, of all others, whom in the world you most desire to see.
My daughter.
Prince Godfrey, Charles, and Eustace, whom say you?
Yourself.
Next
yourself,
yourself,
our sister.
Our sister.
And whom you?
My love.
Who's that?
Your honoured self, fair maid.
Nay, I'll make good the words that I have said. Father, I give a daughter to your hand. Brothers, behold, here doth your sister stand. Tancred, behold the lady you once ceased. I only love Prince Robert here. I only leave Prince Robert here displeased.
My daughter Bellafranca.
Sister.
Love.
I am too happy and too full of joy. Heaven pours on me more good than I can bear. That I that before was starved, now surfeit here.
Princes and lady, nothing can displease us, for we partake in all this glad content, and with applause rejoice this accident. Tancred, rejoice, your love, and you, your friends, where you begin with marriage, our love ends. Kings and kings' peers, to heaven ascribe the glory, whilst we to chronicles report this story.
Make love unto my sister? 'Tis most strange. Now, Guy, I would thou hadst thy French love here. My heart should grant her what I then refused. Now, having got this state of dignity, I grieve that I had been so obdurate been, but for amends would make her Sion's queen.
And well remembered, brother, I must now entreat you for a pretty boy your page, that hath on some occasion strayed from you.
Oh, brother, where's the villain?
Pardon him, and I will tell you.
Great were the offence. I would not clear for you.
The poor boy, brother, stays within my tent, but so disguised you cannot know him now, for he's turned wench, but I know the wag to be a boy. To see him thus transformed, I should have sworn he had been a wench indeed.
Pray, let me see him, brother, in that habit. I would not loose the villain for more gold than Sion would be sold for. He will blush to be ta'en tardy in his maid's attire.
You have pardoned him.
I have.
Then, Jack, appear.
And enter the lady, red hair due to a clash, by Briony.
Nay, blush not to be in your woman's gear.
Leap, heart, dance, spirit, be merry, jocund soul. 'Tis she undoubtedly.
You know me then?
I do. 'Twas that disguise that all this while hath blinded my clear eyes.
Fie, are you not ashamed to kiss a boy, and in your arms to grasp him with such joy?
She is no boy. You do mistake her quite.
A boy, a page, a wagtail by this light. What say you, sister?
Sure, he told me so, for if he be a maid, I made him so.
Do not mistake the sex, man, for he's none. It is a rogue, a wag. His name is Jack, a notable assembling lad, a crack.
Brother, 'tis you that are deceived in her. Beshrew her. She hath been my bedfellow a year and more, yet I had not the grace. Brothers, receive a sister. Reverend father, accept a daughter, whilst I take a wife, and of a great king's daughter make a queen. This is the beauteous virgin, the French lady, to whom my fortune still remains in debt.
A lady, then, I cry you mercy. Brother, a gallant bride, would I had such another.
A wondrous change. She that your page hath been is now at length transformed to be your queen. Pardon me, Guy, my love drew me along, no shameless lust.
Fair saint, I did you wrong. If fortune had not been your friend in this, you had not lain thus long without a kiss. Father, embrace her, brothers, sister, all.
This fortune makes our joys mere comical. The fame of our success all Europe brings. The father, patriarch, sees his sons all kings.
Heavens are full of bounty. Then, brave princes, first in the temple hang these trophies up as a remembrance of your fortunes past. You, good old father, wear your patriarch's robes. Prince Godfrey, walk you with your crown of thorns. Guy with his lady, Tancred with his wife, Charles with the crown of Cyprus, and young Eustace crowned with the rich Sicilian diadem. I with the honor of the pagan's deaths. So in procession walk we to Christ's tomb, with humble hearts to pay our pilgrim's vows. Repair we to our countries that once done, for Sion and Jerusalem are one.
And they exit and they all live happily ever after, unless you're a king who got killed. Obviously, that you don't live happily ever after. We do get an interesting little temporal check here. So it seems that even though it seemed to be explicitly William the First who was king when they left, actually it looks like it was William the Second. Actually, it sort of does fit.
Ish.
Just about. So yeah, actually.
But Robert didn't become king.
Well, shush.
I love it.
Shush.
Being right.
Shush. I only said sort of.
As kill.
Yeah, as opposed to the absolute historical accuracy of the other four dudes getting given crowns and marrying into royal families and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
there's some
AK-47s.
Yeah, and there's some really weird stuff in that, because I was quite liking the idea of who shall we crown king? Him? No, I'm not free. No, there's a clash in my diary. Yeah, no. Okay, you. Excellent. Oh, the omens are bad. It's all going to go really bad for you. Oh well, never mind.
Yeah. It must have had really good special effect for that crown bursting or whatever it does.
Yeah, the crown is burst and parted from my head. I mean, it's such a weird moment, and it's not a good omen. And he doesn't say, okay, maybe I'll pass it on to somebody else. He just goes, oh well, nah, I'll sort it out. Yeah, so they all live happily ever after. I think they managed to, reconcile all the various plot lines there. Nobody seems to mention the whole fancying your sister stuff too much. They don't really go into that. They just sort of quietly move on. Group hug. Really tight group hug. Yeah, Alexandra?
Also, that brief kind of no, the joke is on Eustace, who's the only one who doesn't realize that the girl who he thought was a boy dressed as a girl is in fact a girl. And he's over there having sort of gay panic or homophobic panic. And everyone else is sort of going, no, it's fine. No, it's fine. Yeah, that's not weird.
Either way, it's fine.
At all.
It's all fine in the end. Briony.
Yeah, and I wonder, should not more have been made of the fact that she's been sharing a bed with a man for over a year?
It's so true.
That's just
Everyone's
taken him totally in stride when Guy says, like, it's fine, we've been sleeping together for over a year.
Yeah,
embrace her.
it's fine.
She's
It's fine.
she's your sister now.
Well, it's fine because she's a girl, because it
Yeah.
turns out she's a girl.
Mm.
Yeah. Otherwise, again, it would be like, wait, hang on, what?
I mean,
Yeah.
people shared beds all the time in this period.
Hmm.
So, in a non-sexual way. I mean, and much later too. There's a little gag about this in The Recruiting Officer, which is in the next century, where a woman dressed up as a boy who really desires the man she's sleeping with is, she shares a bed with him for warmth as his page, and of course nothing happens because he doesn't know that. So.
Mm.
And that's what Farquhar or something, and yeah, so it's way so.
Yeah.
That's like a little bit, ooh, but it's. I mean, there's nothing like really egregious about that fact.
Okay. Any more about the close of the play? Because I say, it all made perfect sense. It's the everyone clearly is fine, and everyone lives happily ever after, sort of. Okay, so we'll go into sort of final thoughts, because it's that thinking about the play overall. Because there's an awful lot in the play that is super silly and super fun. I have been thinking quite a lot about, how do you reframe, where they're fighting and who they're fighting and what this play is. I was thinking maybe we just go for, rather than the Four Princes of London, or just the Four Princes of Camelot or something. Just move it into a sort of semi-strange, because the wars that Arthur has with Rome. You could substitute with Rome, and then you just change the general destination, and you just change the ending so that they don't go all horribly murdery, and you could create something that does all the silly stuff that this play does, and retain all the silly stuff without retaining the really quite awkward stuff. Because, there's nothing... I don't think there's anything a modern audience really wants to do is to watch spoofs of Tamburlaine the Great. I just don't think the modern audience cares enough about that action. And a lot of that stuff towards the end sort of got a bit... I was a bit not interested, actually, in a lot of it, in terms of just even within the logic of the play. Just going, can we just get to the resolution of the various plot lines, please, rather than just constant fighty stuff. Though the fighty stuff can be quite fun. So that's sort of my game plan, is that, just to completely recontextualize where it exists, because it doesn't make any sense where it lives now. I'm not worried about the play making any sense. I just want to retain the silly, fighty brother not recognizing each other action, because I think that's suitably silly and suitably popular for the time. So possibly it's popular now. It might work. I don't know. Other thoughts about what one might do with this text? Remember, the author's dead. We can do what we like with it. Change what we like. Maybe someone wants to go for the more science fiction direction. I don't know. Maybe there's other thoughts people have out there. So, final thoughts around the room. Elizabeth, any final thoughts about the play?
Yeah, I felt like it was like the first time we had like a Crusades comedy. I think usually those are more of a tragic genre. I did enjoy the silliness. I did enjoy the kind of way the plot kind of disintegrates towards the end. And I just felt to myself that there's no fixing this one. I know Lynn tries every week to just mend it, just mend the play, just like put it to rights. But I just thought there's really no fixing this one.
I don't know. It's basically a Monty Python. That's what it is. I mean, that's why I was suggesting switching it to the an Arthurian legend placement, because say all of the material, the actual structural nature of everything is working really well, and there's really fun bits. I'll go to Lynn. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we have a booster who always wants to make it work. That's Robert, but because
it's my job.
it's kind of your calling. It's not just a job. It's like
my function within the room is to keep pushing people towards what does one practically want to do with the text, rather than just say no, because frankly we've had considerably harder ones than this. This is a doddle to sort out in comparison with some of the other ones. Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah, so I do enjoy the silliness and the sort of absurdity of noblemen having to do trades to make their living for a little while. That's a sort of a conceit that I just really enjoy. Yeah, but I do think you have to think of something, whether you put it back in the mists of Avalon, or you push it forward into an imagined future. You got to do something to distance it from historical reality, because the political religious thread is it's just offensive. It's also not all that interesting. I think Rob said something about this, that scene where we talk about the political settlement and who's going to be the head of state here and the head of state here. Oh my God, I could not care less. I was just like, that'll put you to sleep. So there is really some fun, silly, absurd stuff going on here. I do wish the women had more to do, because I think they're both pretty potentially really fun characters. But yeah, it would be a lot of work, a lot of cutting, a lot of reimagining, setting, and maybe some real authorship, modifying and adding actual language to sort of hide the seams. But there's things about it that are really provocative.
Because it's reasonably long. It's a reasonably chunky script as it stands. It's taken us 3 sessions, and we've moved it quite a lot of text each time. And so thinking of this as a comedy is thinking, well, we're going to cut quite a large chunk out of it anyway, just to make sure that it runs at comedy length. And so that gives us all sorts of interesting questions about the sort of improv, and also I feel it needs songs. I want to add some songs. But yeah, also because there is great potential with the female characters in the play, and it's because that fight scene is just, there wasn't more of that fight scene. I wanted more of that fight scene, and more of that kind of action would be really nice to have some stuff to go with. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, if you're trying to trim this down to comedy length, which is what, of the order of 2 hours, you're going to have to excise a heck of a lot of text, because the fight sequences, obviously we just dealt with in one-liners, two-liners. If you've got someone who's a fight ranger enthusiast, they could probably take up 2 hours on their own without really trying. No names, no pack drill, but the guilty know themselves. Overall, seems to work. There's enough absurdish stuff in there, but it does seem to me like there's an awful lot of in-jokes in here where they're pastiching other conflict theatre narratives that we've had at the time. All the Turkish plays, and pretty well all of the others where you got bunches of posh kids going off to war and not necessarily behaving particularly cleverly.
Alexandra, any final thoughts?
I really like some of the way in which this is written, some of the structural aspects, and I think a lot of the pacing would be resolved just by speaking at comedy pace. So we've been sort of going, sister, madam, lady, love, which is actually all takes like half a second of everyone saying the thing at the same time, or kind of going snap, 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 snap. I think a lot of it would be much more snappy dialogue in that way, and then you'd lose kind of a third of the length just by means of that. I do find that a lot of the dialogue is very clearly suited for comedy, and so the bits that seem more serious might be that way intentionally, might be intending to sort of give us the relief in the opposite direction. And I wonder whether the setting issue could be resolved simply by changing the names of Sion and Jerusalem. Because if everyone isn't saying Zion and Jerusalem all the time, if we just make those fictional names, the fact that everyone is based in historical places and in different faiths and all of this, like I've not yet, I put this in the comments, I've not yet seen any actual Islamophobia in the play, in bits of it that I've read. If there isn't any further up, then you've just got a, vague foreigner against vague Christianness, and you can tone that down a little bit because, but going back to Monty Python, they do have a piece set in this kind of spacing. And yes, it was controversial, but also it was very much loved because it wasn't, trying to do a religious statement. So I think there's something in that could potentially actually appeal from being, presented as an intentionally sort of tolerant or lampooning religion in general as opposed to a specific faith, or maybe the sort of totally fictional universe is a way to go. My question is, for a modern production, what we would be aiming for, as in what would the sort of the, not necessarily the ultimate goal or the moral or the lesson, but what are you trying to get from your audience? Because if it's not that you're making fun of Tamburlaine clones, then, and you're not making fun of religious conflict in the Crusades, then what are we supposed to want to happen?
Oh, I think it is that sort of chivalric romance spoof. I mean, I think, of which, we've got plenty of modern examples doing similar work in that sense. I think with that, you're right, they do need to make hunt for other things that can be played with there. But I think that's still where it's aiming. It's still basically doing what Monty Python did, basically.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's a decision that would need making.
Yeah. Lois, any final thoughts?
Yeah, lots of possibilities. I mean, I quite like Stephen's thing about calling it, carry on crusading. That's kind of how it feels. And if you actually called it that, then I don't know that people would be terribly bothered about anything that happens. The only thing that seems to me that would have to go are those rather religious speeches, like a couple of the ones I had, where there's all this very awestruck tone about the beauty of these places in Jerusalem with all their biblical associations and how awful it is that pagans are now occupying them. That seems to me perfectly straight. It's not being sent up, and it would be very difficult to do that now. I don't know whether, replacing names. I was trying to think whether everybody was talking about, since Sculthorpe or Wolverhampton are ours. I don't think somehow,
I think that would work rather well, actually.
Wolverhampton.
Down with the Scunthorpians.
Just something of that sort. But mainly, I think if one actually presented it as a kind of carry-on crusading, I think that would pretty much take care of most of the play. Actually,
I think there is a slight there is an imbalance between the Christian side and the as they call them, the pagan side, in the sense that yes, while all of Charles and Godfrey and Eustace etc. are very, very silly, they do also have some sort of weight and story to them in the way that the opposing side are pretty much just cardboard cutout silly most of the time. We saw that first scene and went, oh, there might be something here, and then there really isn't actually throughout the rest of the play, and that's where the imbalance gets quite uncomfortable, because it's they are very cartoonish in that sense. And now it's fine if we can make the rest of the characters equally cartoonish and stupid. They are to a degree stupid because none of them can recognise each other for more than 5 seconds. But it's that sort of that imbalance throughout just. Yeah, it becomes just that little bit too much of an issue, especially if you also lose at the end. Stephen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose. I was thinking about, remember that Lily play, The Man in the Moon? And the whole kind of play is a kind of extended Shaggy Dog story of how the man came to be in the moon. And it struck me that, this is a bit like that, but, how come we had a Norman king of Sicily, a Norman king of Crete? How did that happen, for God's sakes, And this is a kind of like fantasy version of that. But but it's not a question that would at all engage modern audiences. So I mean that's my kind of thought about why the kind of crusade element really is played down so much, that it's actually more about the travels of the four French brothers, or Norman brothers as it were. And I don't know how well that would travel, and I'm not sure as well how much of the play, I mean, I like to sort of imagine a past performance, but how much of the play's architecture is built around things that don't really travel. Chivalry, it's really, really interested in chivalry and the outward side of chivalry, the kind of stealing shields and stuff, and also the way it makes people behave. And I'm not sure that just saying, oh, it's just testosterone why these guys are fighting each other. I mean, what would you replace chivalry with? And also the disguise thing. You really need to abort. There's so much disguise. So much of it depends on these kind of disguise conventions, which may be being mocked for all we know, or may have been mocked. It would just, there's too much chivalric stuff and there's too much disguise stuff. And what would you replace them with? Because I'm not sure either of those would work in something that's play length. You can make a joke about people not recognizing one another, but there's so much of it in the play, just all the time. I think it would get tired, and I think the chivalry stuff would get tired, and I'm not sure you'd have a job replacing them, it seems to me, with something that modern audiences would relate to.
I'm not seeing these problems as being bigger problems, because it seems that almost every time the joke of a scene is almost always something relatively simple. I mean, yes, there may be a wider architecture and spoof going on, but each scene has an inherent joke that is clearly understandable. So I don't know if that's as insuperable a barrier as all that.
It's just the same joke, though, is it?
No, each scene has a different joke. There's lots of different jokes played throughout. I mean, yes, we do have a number of repeated fight scenes, but each misunderstanding, each sequence does have a different core to them. It's not exactly the same every time, and there are different misunderstandings and plays that are at length throughout it. Anyway, Briony, final thought.
Yeah, and it kind of answers Stephen's a little bit. I still just think that this Mexican wrestler thing actually covers all those points. It fits so well, with the full face masks that they wear, and they're not recognizing each other. The this silly willy waving is so wrestler MO. How they keep like the bants and then the fights and then the bants and the fight. It just works really well for me. And then also that the scene that a lot of people weren't like sure how well it landed, where they were going on about all the positions that they had within the war and whatnot. They could be discussing what moves they're going to use. What their I'm gonna clothesline him, and then this is gonna happen, and then well, his special move is this, and I don't know. I feel like it would sell it really well and encompass a lot of stuff, a lot of the silliness, because I agree with what people have said, that there's some really good stuff here, and it's just how you would kind of almost like scoop it off the top of all of that problematic crusade stuff, and I think there is a way to do it.
No, I did, taking it all the way of saying that they're not travelling to a far off kingdom to fight a war. They're travelling off for a competition, and that they are fighting these other people, and they're not dead at the end. They just won, and so it's this massive gig that they just get lost on the way to, and these princes work their way up, and I quite like that. Yeah, I think Briony's got the best idea so far. I think that's because then that gives the reason for a fight all the more so. Right, okay, wrestling. That's the answer. Okay. To the question we never thought we were going to ask. All that remains then is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.